It's November 29th, and I think I accidentally said it was the 28th on my last clip, and I said it was a Saturday, and it's the 28th. Well, it's the 29th, and it is a Saturday, and it's November 29th, 2014. This is the second part of what I'm talking about today, which is government premeditated rape against me, and from various positions and using different combinations of triggers. So I am going to talk about what they did with training me to respond to being raped from a lying down position. And I think I said in another video clip that where I was talking about getting raped from a standing position that I didn't remember as much guns or knives used on me in England, or having something to do with facilitating that kind of a rape. But I do remember that actually there was one situation. So that included my lying down, which wasn't unique because the United States did the same thing. But I was lying down, and from what I remember, I was getting babysat by the Middletons. The Middletons knew the royal family and had worked with them for a long time, and they went back and forth with different royals and people in the government, and they sometimes called to give security messages to the British royal family when I was there. So I would be, for example, in Diana of Wales's private room, and she'd get a call, and it might be from Mike Middleton. So the British royals have known the Middletons all along. It's not like Prince William met Kate at a college and they just happened to find each other and fall in love. Oh no, that is not how things work over there. Nice fairy tale idea, but that is not the way it goes. Everything over there, just like a lot of government facilitated marriages over here, is organized. And believe me, they put a lot of effort into their organization for those sorts of things. They will go to very strong extremes to organize marriage. And I don't know why I think it's so funny, because it's really not. But I guess what's funny is how they pull the wool over everyone's eyes and make everything look like, I will say one thing, the royals are from a long line of actors and actresses, and probably they don't allow anyone to marry into their family unless they are as well. So I was why the United States was trafficking me over there, and why I knew the royals, I am not quite sure. I think that it had to do with the fact that my parents, or the people who were raising me, the Bobs and Jixies, they're gifted psychically, and royals have always been interested in psychic and quote-unquote prophetic individuals, people who are gifted that way. They've always used those kinds of people. And if you look throughout, it goes back to in the Old Testament, in the Bible, which is where a lot of the English monarchs based their royal positions off of Judaism. And in all of the Old Testament stories about kings and so on and so forth, they were all prophetic in some way. They supposedly had the spirit of the Lord, which sometimes they would say that King lost that, but they also tended to they would quote unquote prophesy. And if you look in the Old Testament, it talks about Saul prophesying, and all the prophets who were in their own class of their own. All the prophets said, "What is this? You know, he's supposed to be a king, and why is he prophesying?" And supposedly King Saul, laid down on the floor and was like smitten with all these visions, and just began to utter prophecy after prophecy after prophecy, and began to see all these visions like second sight. So all these prophets, whose main occupation was to be advisors to the royalty and to the kingdom and military, they're suddenly looking over at Saul and wondering why he has a double duty. You know, why is he a king and all of a sudden now he's a prophet? You know, they had very specific ideas about what different individuals' abilities would direct them to, and what kind of position it meant they were to have. So, you know, if Saul was prophesying, then did they get this king thing wrong because maybe he should have been a prophet? So anyway, it goes back to that. It goes back to the time where I guess someone realized, oh, kings can be prophetic, and which is another kind of word for, I guess, more common understanding of being psychic, being able to see into the future, see things about people's lives, predict things, that kind of thing, see things that are happening in the present as well, that are occurring in other locations, all of that supernatural kind of PSI stuff. So that has carried over to several European courts, and especially to the English one. And the English have always been interested in having advisors who are prophetic or psychic, and they have also been interested in being that way themselves. So when when I think about, when I explain, okay, I was talking to Diana, and why was I there to begin with? You know, possibly I was there because they worked with the United States, and they were interested in all this prophecy, psychic stuff. And I just happened to be a kid that went along, but maybe they also thought that, well, she's going to be the same way, so let's get to know her now. And that's what they did. And all of it was secret. I mean, nobody knew about it, which is why I know that this whole thing with William and Kate, you know, who knows what has been going on all along for decades. Because if I was getting snuck in and out so secretly, you know, being made to even hide under blankets in their cars as they drove me back and forth from the airport, I'm sure that they were sneaking Katie around. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm not the only person, the only kid that was getting, you know, hidden and then passed back and forth. So, you know, on one hand, it inspired a lot of jealousy against me by individuals from the United States government, because they got really jealous, I think, that their kids weren't going over. But on the other hand, it wasn't like it was a bunch of fun and games for me either, because I started getting tortured over there. I wasn't just going over there having a great time and meeting people and, you know, having fun or certain perks. I was getting tortured, and I was also getting sexually molested. So the royals were involved in, along with the British government, involved with the CIA in a lot of their programs that they use against kids. And so I'm trying to explain some of this so that it doesn't sound so strange when I say one of the individuals who I believe and I remember was lying on top of me when I got cut was Charles. Was Prince Charles. And there were a couple of situations where he exhibited some violence. He wasn't typically a violent person, but on occasion he could be. He really did not. I did not see him in a completely active, violent, aggressive manner all the time at all. He was much more. Wasn't really like that. But when he was lying on top of me one time doing something, and you know, I was a kid. It was before Katie was born, so it was up to age 7. I stood up and I did go over there a few times after that as well, but it could have been after she was born that I got cut. I'm trying to remember. But he had used a knife. I tried to get away and cut me a little bit on the stomach. And so another time he did something else to me. So there were other things that he did. And then when I was in the United States, so all of a sudden I'd be over there, and then they'd make sure that I wasn't going to talk about it. Then they'd traffic me back to the United States, and then they'd have a whole group of people from the United States doing the same thing, either to cover for what he did, or just because it was all part of some group idea that if you do it, I'll do it, and then we won't tell anyone, and we'll use this as security to coordinate all of our other secretive activities, and we can have this raping cameo in common. And some of the strategy for having me learn how to kill myself by quote-unquote accident with brake failure was also practiced in England. That's what I remember. I remember that that some of that effort was in England, some of it was in Canada, and some of it was in the United States. And that was where they would hook me up to, well, they'd have me in a car as a kid, have my feet down on the pedals, and they'd start training me on using the gas instead of the brakes. And to get a panic response from me before they did that, they'd suddenly flash a knife at me, or they'd attack me, or do something that really scared me, so that then they'd see this panic. They wanted to be sure that the panic response that I had was connected to my hitting the gas instead of hitting the brakes. And another thing that I think I will include in this clip very quickly before I go on to this lying down rape situation is that I was thinking about it yesterday, and I'm not quite sure that Diana of Wales, if you know, she's possibly still alive and in witness protection somewhere. From everything that I know, that's very possible. But the note that she had produced by her butler that said Charles was planning an accident in my car once brake failure. That's something that she had voiced on occasion, maybe that she might be harmed. But I had given her a note myself that said the same thing. If anything, and I had asked her at one point, if anything happens to me, can you give someone this note? Because I heard some people saying that this is what was being planned, and if something happens to me, I don't want someone to get away with it. And so she put it in a box. She has a little private, or it was a drawer with it that was locked. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute.